Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox back for another episode, and you're in for an Uber treat today. That, of course, means I'm in for a treat, so I'm excited about that. But we're going to talk about space flight, we're going to talk about compliance, we're going to talk about leadership, and we're going to talk about culture. And I can't think of a better combination of things to talk about. So that, with that incredibly long-winded introduction, first of all, let me welcome Andy Crocker to the podcast. Andy, welcome, and thank you so much for taking the time to visit with me today.
Thank you. It's my pleasure and honor to be on.
Well, could you maybe start, Andy, by telling us about your professional background?
Sure. Yeah. For 30 years, I've been in the aerospace business. I'm an aerospace engineer, rocket scientist, some say. I have worked on the defense side. I've worked in civil space and commercial space. And when I say civil space, I mean working for NASA. And I've always been in industry, but I've worked space programs from designing launch vehicles to spacecraft to vehicles that are going to go back to the moon.
So I grew up in the 60s. So when you said rocket science, that still brings up for me the magic of that time for NASA. So I look at all rocket scientists through that lens and those eyes, and I still feel the magic. And when I talk to people like you, my sense is you guys actually still feel the magic too. Is that fair?
I think it is fair. I think, like any job, any profession, there are times where you feel like you're grinding. There are times where it's boring or gets bogged down in bureaucracy. But also, like any job, hopefully, there are times where it's really exciting. And one of the reasons that most of us who get into aerospace do go into this business is because we are excited about the idea of putting things into space and people into space, hopefully. And that is still a very driving mission for us. And so when we get to do that, when we get to participate in that area, it's still fun.
So I'm the son of an engineer, and he was an industrial engineer, but he still had an engineering bend. And my observation is you guys, gender neutral noun there, tend to be very, very tactically focused and can go into the weeds as far as you need to. However, you may not be as good as kind of stepping back, looking at a bigger strategic plan or looking at a big picture. So I'm always intrigued by when someone like yourself really makes what I see as a transition. So could you maybe describe that journey for you?
I'd be glad to. I I definitely enjoy the tactical detail down and in part of engineering. That's part of why I got into it. That and loving math and science, of course. But I also love the big picture. I probably enjoy that more just naturally from my personality, looking at the big picture, understanding how things come together. And for me, that actually even extends to the humanities side. I, in the terms that we often talk about, left brain and right brain, I actually like using both sides. And for me, the right brain side or that more artistic or emotional or maybe soft skills side is thinking big picture, but also thinking about why are we doing things, how do we work together, and especially when it gets into leadership within the aerospace industry for myself. So part of what led to a book I wrote called The Unconditionals is really stepping back to look at what is this all for. I love aerospace engineering, and there's certainly a purpose to it, but when you step away from that, what is purpose about, what are we really doing things for, and then that really led me to dig into what are my values and what values are important.
So how were you able to, or maybe that's not a fair question. What was it that caused you to maybe take a look at some of these other values, move to the right side of the brain? Moving, in my case, presupposes part of it worked, and I can't add 2 plus 2 with a calculator. So I live in the right side.
Right.
I don't go over to that left side. But what really led you to maybe making that shift?
Yeah, for me, there were a couple of things. One is that my kids, I sort of it hit me that my kids were reaching an age where they were going to start going away to college, and I have always wanted to give my kids, other than just the normal day-to-day, teaching them, I wanted to give them something to hang on to, particularly what I believe is important. And the other one really has to do with my career, which is I was involved for 5 years with a project to design the next human landing system, which is just like it sounds, sending humans back to the moon. It's been more than 50 years, and about 7 years ago now, NASA decided to begin that process again, and started it. And the company I was working for decided to get involved. And I talk about this in the Unconditionals. It was really a fantastic project, great team building experience, great opportunity to really know what it's like to work with a great team. But unfortunately, even though we made it to the quote unquote finals 2 different times, we lost. We lost to SpaceX, Elon Musk's company, and we lost to the next time to Blue Origin, Jeff Bezos' company. So it's a great company to be in and to compete in, but we lost. And when you put your heart and soul into a project like that, I mean, going to the moon, sending humans to the moon is kind of a holy grail type of project for a rocket scientist like me. When you put your heart and soul into that and you lose, it's devastating. And for me, it really caused me to kind of step back and say, okay, I had this grand purpose for 5 years. Now what's my purpose? And as I said a minute ago, I even stepped back further and said, what does purpose even mean? What does that look like? And then thinking about my kids, how do I convey to my kids what's really important? And so I really spent the time to dig in and think about, what do I think is important, and what have other people throughout history said is important, and how do I pull those together into a coherent message that I can convey?
Let me focus on the work you did on the lunar landing competition, and you used teamwork, and you used. I have to believe that was, if not the culmination of everything you had been working for, at least up to that time, one of the culminations. And we all want to have that grand project, whatever it may be. So could you talk about why you thought the team worked so well? Was it leadership? Was it the individuals? Was it the mission? Was it all of the above? Was it none of the above? Was it something else?
I think to a certain extent, all of the above. I think what I think about first when asked a question like that is the quality of the people on the team. When we went out to bring in members of the team, and most of them came from outside the company. We had a number of great people inside the company who helped to get the opportunity to compete. But then once we were in the competition, we had to hire a lot more people. And one of the things that really, one of the things that we should have known, and we really found out once we opened the door, is there are so many people out there who want to work on a project like this. I mean, going back to the moon, that we got the opportunity to talk to lots of really talented people, and we hired some of the best. And so working with both quality people in terms of their values, in terms of how they work, but also just how smart they are and how well they are at doing engineering. And then how we worked together. And obviously not every day is a piece of cake for a project like this, or any project, but the team coming together, solving problems, losing once and then bringing things back together and putting together an even better concept for the next competition. That was all super rewarding. Obviously, the endeavor part of it, the purpose and the perseverance and the personal and team growth that came out of it were all also very important.
Let me turn to some of the concepts that you talked about. I'm going to start with the trap of conditional leadership. Could you tell us what that is, what that trap is, and then how to either overcome or even avoid that trap?
That's one that I really, as I got into writing the Unconditionals, it was kind of an aha moment for me, because I had settled on the values that I think are really important and are important whether you're working individually or part of a team or leading a team. But what I really came to understand is that what's critical is having those values unconditionally and trying to live them unconditionally. And what that means is it doesn't depend on who the person is or what situation you're in, what kind of rewards or recognition there may be, or even what the outcomes are. All of those things are external. All of those things are what maybe we're looking at, but what really our value should be based on is who we are. And the value should come from who we are and not depend on anything other than who we are and the fact that we're dealing with other human beings and treating everyone with respect. I break down love into respect, kindness, and compassion. Having respect, kindness, and compassion for every person, no matter who they are, what they believe, or anything, is critical. And so coming to that realization really helped me to focus on how to tell the story of what's so important about these values in any situation.
Why is the characteristics? This is a terrible question.
No,
Let's start over.
sure.
Why is character so much more important than by the book compliance, or another way to phrase it might be, why is it a mistake to prioritize achievement over authenticity?
Yeah. So one of the things that I learned writing the book, and that I hope other people will get out of the unconditionals and anything that talks about values in a similar way, is that shaping who you are, who we are as individuals internally with our values is what leads to the outcomes that we want. We can achieve success in terms of career promotions or money or fame or whatever, but it's hollow unless we have the values to back that up. And with the values of love, gratitude, integrity, accountability, and endeavor, those achievements, whether we reach those early in life or after many failures and persevering to get to those achievements, those come from a place of wholeness in character, and also are much more fulfilling and have a much more positive impact on the people we're around and the community we're in.
So, in terms of character, is that defined and then led by senior management, pushing it down? Is there a component of, I don't want to say the shop floor, but those on the bottom, and moving the character up where they meet in the middle? Because you have such a great culture, people are willing to stand up and say, "This is what I believe in." Is it a combination of that, or how do you not simply define character, but how do you imbue that throughout the organization?
Yeah, I'll say I'll do the wimpy answer first, and then what I think is the right answer. The wimpy answer is some of both. Definitely, there can be a grassroots culture movement. You know, the folks throughout the organization, no matter what position they're in, certainly can imbue character and culture through the company. But honestly, what I think is most often the case, and what needs to be the case, is it starts with leadership. You know, the leaders typically will start the company or will lead the company, guide the company, define what the values are for the company, whether it's compliance or, you know, just how we're going to do business in general. And when leaders don't demonstrate those key values, particularly integrity and accountability, then the people within the company either decide it's okay not to have those values, or just don't decide to try to do it on their own. So I think it starts with the leaders, but then it really does depend on all the members of the company, of the organization participating. So the leaders can't just have the values, but demonstrate the values and then share throughout the organization how important those values are, so that all the members in the organization can feel it and then decide on their own, hey, I'm going to participate in this because I see what good it is for me personally and for the organization.
Are there any lessons from the unconditionals you can tie this back into?
Yeah, absolutely. So from an integrity perspective, I think I've got several stories in the unconditionals of, great stories of from the past, both longer ago and then more modern. One of the great stories of fairly recent times is in Michigan, the Flint water crisis that I talk about in the book. Dr. Mona Hanna-Attisha was one who realized that the water supply in Flint had high levels of lead and was endangering the community, in particular children. She was studying the children's blood levels and let people know about it, and got a lot of backlash, and really was threatened, with her job, and a lot of other negativity that came from it. But she insisted on her results, her data, and really pushed that this was a critical thing for the health of the community, in particular the children, and then eventually got support. That integrity, and in particular the moral courage, I think is what stood out there. And so there are lots of examples of good moral courage, and then and plenty of examples of negative integrity or disintegrity, as I call it in the book. But those are all things that we learn from as we go through our careers.
Let's turn to compliance now, and I want to explore with you what you think compliance gets right, but where it could go deeper. And frankly, many businesses view compliance as a mandatory check the box. We got a legal requirement over us. Whoever sets the regulatory framework, we meet the regulatory framework and we're good to go. Why is that so short-sighted in your view?
I think you touched on the first piece of it, which is so often we look at compliance as an external thing, is something that's externally focused, where what really we should be thinking about is integrity, which is internally focused, starts with the internal. And compliance is great, but it should be a result of that internal drive, that internal desire for integrity. Compliance leads to following the rules and risk mitigation. Those are great, but they need to start with the honesty, the authenticity, the consistency, the fairness that comes from integrity in the people in the company and the organization as a whole. And so I think they go together hand in hand, but hopefully compliance is the result of having the integrity through the people in the organization.
So how can you move from a check the box mentality to really putting integrity in the very DNA of an organization?
I think the main thing, and again, like I said earlier, it was a realization for me as I wrote the Unconditionals, is you've got to think about it in terms of being unconditional. That is, no matter what's going on, no matter how hard it is, no matter what negative things you're going to have to deal with as a result of demonstrating this integrity, you have to do it because that's who you are, or that's who the organization is. That's what's critical about these values and about integrity in this case. Is it's not a box check, because a box check tends to be, did we do it? Yeah, close enough, right? It's close enough, we'll move on. There's no close enough with integrity, and there's no close enough with unconditional values. One of the things that I say over and over again in the book is, we'll never be perfect. We'll never reach the ideal. None of us can ever reach the ideal of truly unconditional love, truly unconditional integrity. But the point is, we strive for that. And if we're looking at ignoring the situation, ignoring the difficulties that we face by doing the right thing, but doing it because it is the right thing, then we will not only meet the rules, but the spirit of the rules, and do the right thing, checking the box because we truly have met the requirement or done the right thing.
Now I want to explore. This is really why I wanted to talk to you. So we are here, and that is values as a compliance superpower. I have long said that effective compliance equates to more efficient business processes, equates to greater profitability. That was a nice little make money formulation, but you have completely blown that up. And you've blown it up in a way that I absolutely love. So, how do you see being able to use compliance as a superpower, unpack values that you can drive down to literally the shop floor, but that just explodes back up with innovation, with productivity, with people working as a team, unified towards one goal?
Yeah, I think it goes back to focusing on the mindset of unconditionality. And that is, in the organization, this is who we are as an organization. We, in our value statement, in our mission statement, in the DNA, the culture, we are people of integrity. We are a company of integrity. And this is what that means. This is how we behave. We have accountability. We own our own outcomes. We own our duties, our commitments, our jobs. And that mindset, unconditionally, that is, no matter what happens, then drives, as I said before, the outcomes of compliance, of doing the things that we're supposed to do. And then, as you said, that then leads to the results that you want. It leads to, so much research shows that companies with integrity perform better. Maybe not in the very short term. Maybe you can get away with things in the short term, but over the long term, they perform better financially. Their stock performs better. There's a lot of research to support that. Same with accountability. Teams, companies perform better over the long term. People are happier. They're more fulfilled as individuals when the people in the company is accountable. Overall, we become better when we have these values and we strive for having them unconditionally, no matter what's going on.
Andy, could I ask a few questions about your writing style, or not so much your style, your process?
Sure.
I love to talk to other authors about this. So I'm a morning guy. If it ain't done by 10, it ain't going to get done. So I'm very good in the morning, obviously less good later. Even with nonfiction, and that's mainly where I write, I kind of have it lined up in my head. I don't outline things. I just sit down and write it. And then I fill in, as you go. What's your writing process? What works for you?
So far, and it's changed over time, but most recently, it's really been a combination of that right brain, left brain that we talked about. So the right brain part of it, the data-driven, thinking logically, I do tend to outline things. I think about it, more abstractly first, but then when I feel like I've got a rough idea of what I want to put down on paper, I'll put an outline together. Sometimes I may go grab a bunch of different pieces and smush them all together and then organize it into an outline that seems to flow. So that's where I start. But then, and I've learned this from, I guess, the hard way, because I have tended in the past to write like an engineer. I've written plenty of technical papers, and those are one type of writing, but that's not what a nonfiction book tends to need to be. And so I really have to then open up the other side of the brain and really think about what are the impacts? How are people going to relate to this? How can I, other than just providing research, which is great to back up the points, what does it really mean to people? And so in the Unconditionals, I provide a how to live it section with each chapter, because hopefully I've provided that emotional hook with stories through the other parts of the book. But then how does it relate to me individually in the different roles in my life, as a person, in relationships, as a parent, in the workplace? How does it relate directly to me? So I think short answer is, I think I have some of both. I probably start more with an outline. I fill in the gaps with hopefully a little more emotion, and then And then, I'll go back and make sure I don't have too much data or too much story, and hopefully there's a balance there.
Could you say a few words about why you went with PR by the Book and what's been your experience in working with them?
Yeah, they're great. I talked to several different potential publicists. I went with them because they have a great track record with nonfiction authors. Because the people that I talked to there and sort of vetting the different folks talked about their experience with authors similar to me, and some of the connections that they have with people like you and others in the industry. For me, I'm a first-time author of this kind. I had published a children's book several years ago, but this one was very different, and this one I really wanted to try to make it what it could be in terms of reaching a broader audience. And I just didn't have the connections that a publicist like PR by the Book has. So I've really I've been working with them for a couple of months, and it's been great. They've understood, from the beginning. They got it. They understood what I was trying to do, what my message is. They've been really easy to work with in sharing data with me and listening to input that I have, and obviously connecting with great folks like you has been very helpful.
And did you have anything on the horizon you might be able to share with us?
Well, I'll say honestly, I'm kind of in a transition period. So I talked about a 30-year career in aerospace, and just in the last few weeks, literally, I have decided to take a step back to kind of reset my career. It doesn't really tie directly to having written the book, although it's a convenient time to step away and be able to spend some time on the book and going on podcasts, things like this. But for me, I believe so much in these values and in trying to convey, whether it's through a book or through speaking engagements or through even consulting in the aerospace arena, convey the importance of these values to individuals and organizations. And so I'm really spending the next several months thinking about how can I do that? How can I do that most effectively in a way that's fulfilling and fun for me, but also provides value to people and organizations?
Well, I'm not going to tell you what you should do, but I'm going to put a big ask in front of you.
Yeah.
Is you take that message to non-aerospace companies.
Yeah. Great.
I think that would be great if you would talk to compliance professionals, business executives, or others in companies completely aerospace agnostic.
Right.
Because I think those would be great lessons. I know your stories would be compelling, and I think you'd find a very receptive audience. So that'd be my request.
Yeah, absolutely. I of course I love aerospace. I will always love aerospace. So there's a special place in my heart. But yeah, I agree. It's every part of industry and government and all organizations, nonprofits included, need these kinds of messages to be either taught or reinforced, instilled. And I believe that they're critical for young people. I wrote the book, number one, for my own kids. But as I've thought about it, particularly in the past few weeks, it's important for all young people to have these messages instilled, and not all of their parents are doing that. So, I may also reach out to some schools and say, look, can I come and talk about values? Not related to any one religion, not related to any political affiliation. This is just, what's going to be helpful to these kids as they go out and try to be successful in life for themselves.
Well, Andy, unfortunately, we are near the end of our time for this episode. But before we leave, I wanted to ask you if our listeners wanted to connect with you, find out more about your work, and certainly buy the book, what would be the best place or places for them to go?
The easiest would be to go to andycrockerbooks.com. That's the easiest one. And the book is available in just about every place that you go to look for books. So if you go to your local bookstore, if they don't have it, you can ask them to order it, and they can get it through the normal ways that they do. But you can go on Amazon and other places, and it's also available as an ebook. And soon it'll be available as an audiobook as well. But if you go to andycrockerbooks.com, there are buttons to click there that will take you to to find the book and also to connect with me if you'd like to.
Well, Andy, this has been great fun, and I hope you've enjoyed this as much as me, and I hope we can continue this conversation.
I really have enjoyed it, Tom. I love talking to people with backgrounds like yours to really ask great questions, and it's so much fun. That's the best part for me so far in this adventure, is being able to talk to people that I wouldn't have met and learn new things.
Compliance Podcast Network. Start your mornings with daily compliance news, quick, sharp updates on the top compliance and ethics stories in under 5 minutes every morning in Compliance Podcast Network. Because compliance never sleeps. Need practical advice fast? Check out Compliance Tip of the Day. One actionable idea to level up your program. Short and sweet, every day on Compliance Podcast Network. Got 10 minutes? We've got the week's top 10 stories. 10 for 10 brings you the big compliance headlines. Fast, fun, and focused. Every Saturday on Compliance Podcast Network. And don't miss the Sunday Book Review, where compliance meets culture through must-read books and big ideas every Sunday in Compliance Podcast Network. Whether you're in the office, on a walk, or commuting, stay smart, stay ethical, stay tuned. Only on the Compliance Podcast Network. Available wherever you listen to podcasts.